Bienvenidos, Ushamdid, and welcome Anne Arundel Community College learners from the CTS-233 Fall 2021 semester. This is the Cisco Networking Academy's DevNet Associate or DevASC course curriculum, and in this video tutorial we're going to continue our conversation of Linux command line basics. And in this video our focus is going to be on moving, copying, and removing files. And we're going to talk about some shortcuts that you can take and some options that you can use with the copy and move command, as well as the remove command that you need to be aware of that can save you some time, but that also might be a little bit dangerous, specifically when we're talking about removing files. So let's go ahead and let's dive back into the command line here and let's start taking a look at some examples. And again, here I am, and this is just an Ubuntu virtual machine. And we've created some files and directories. Remember, ls is going to list out the contents of our directories, and it's in this DevNet directory where I've created a bunch of other directories and a bunch of other files. And so let's start with the basics. Let's change directory with the cd command into the DevNet directory, and let's do a long listing and see what we've got here. Now, what I'm going to do right now is what I like to refer to as the poor man's version control system. So it's a good best practice if you don't have version control, and in smaller environments you probably don't. It's a good best practice to make a copy of a file before you edit that file, because if you mess that file up for whatever reason and you can't recover, you have a backup copy. And so if, old school type Unix, Linux system administration is, before you edit the etc hosts file or maybe the named.conf file, make sure you make a copy of it. And so here's what I mean. So the copy command is just simply cp. If you wanted to see the version information on it, and in fact, if you wanted to see that it is a GNU Core Utilities utility, or if it's a GNU Core Utilities utility or not, you could say copy -- version, and you can see here GNU Core Utils. Now, the reason I point this out, and I don't want to get on too big of a tangent here, if you're on a Mac, right? If I was to work back over here to my Mac, and this is a router, but if I'm on the Macintosh and I was to say cp -- version, you can see that it says it's an illegal option, right? If I say man cp, and this is because on the Mac, you're not using, these are sort of BSD general commands that are not based on the GNU utilities. So your mileage may vary. Now, what we're going to be taking a look at here, the majority of what we're going to be taking a look at is going to work across both the Mac and what we would consider sort of a GNU-based Ubuntu installation, but I'll point out some places where you might run into some differences. So again, this is going to be our GNU Core Utils copy version that we're using here. And you can see it's 8.30, not that that makes a big difference. So back to the conversation. Let's say that file A is a really, really important file. Now, I could just simply dive into file A and say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and, let's, whoops, sorry. Oh, and it's read only, of course. So we were messing around with the permission. So let's say chmod 755 on file A. And then let's go back into file A here by saying vi file A. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a whole bunch of lines in here. Again, just some junk. And then we're going to save the file. And that's great. But an hour from now, if I realize that I've completely screwed that file up, I'm going to have to remember, okay, well, what did the file look like when I went in there? What were all the changes that I made? So this is, again, the poor man's version control system is to make a copy of file A. And so you simply say cp for copy. You put the file name that you wish to make a copy of, and then you put the name of the copy. And in what I used to do is, file A -tpbonfy - the date 06/06/2021. And that was pretty much it, right? And so now when we say ls-l for our long listing, we're going to see we've got this file A that is the copy of file A. And it shows you who made the copy. It gives me the date at which the copy was made. In fact, in that file name, you could even put, if there's a change control number that is relatively short, we could work that in there as well so that someone might be able to see, well, what CCR was that individual working on that required that change to be made, right? So this is sort of like your poor man's version control system. Now, the nice thing about this is if I made the copy, and now let's go back into file A, and let's say I think to myself, you know what, we can get rid of, I don't need any of those lines in there. And then I say, save the file. And 30 minutes later, I realize, hey, I definitely need the changes. Or I should say, I definitely made a mistake, right? So if we concatenate out to the screen file A, you can see that it's got 4 hellos. And maybe those lines could be host name lines or something like that, or whatever the information is. But now when I say cat file A and we look at the copy, I can say, oh, right, okay. So now I've got 2 options here. I could copy on top of the file. Let's see what happens if I try to copy the file A, the copy of the file on top of the actual file. And this would be a way for me to try to recover, right? Because what I'm saying here is basically just copy over the original, right? The operational file A. And now let's see, did that work? So cat file A. Okay, we're back in business, right? We're back up, we're backing up, we're operational. And so that's how quickly you can recover if you know that, yeah, you know what, on this copy I made on the 6th of June, we were good. Everything was operational on the system. And then I went in and I changed that file, the original file A, screwed it up completely, and now I need to recover, right? So this is one way that you could do that. And so that is a simple use of the copy command. And maybe you want to practice on a file. So I could say copy file A and then just simply call it, practice. And I'll put a dash in there so it's a little easier to read. Practice file A. And if we say ls-l and we do a long listing, you can see here is practice file A. You'll notice that the size in bytes is exactly the same as the original. Now, when I make changes to the practice file, and let's do this. During the practicing, I'm going to say, DD, and DD, if you hit DD on the keyboard, it's deleting a line at a time. And let's say I'm practicing here, and the question is, so this is a copy, but is it mutually exclusive? Is there any relationship between the copy and the original? So in other words, if I'm changing the copy, am I changing the original? And the answer to that is no, right? And you'll see that my practice file, while the size in bytes is substantially dropped, the original file is still the same size in bytes. So when you make a copy of the file, not a link to the file, when you make a copy, you are creating an independent, mutually exclusive copy of the original file, right? So at this point, practice-file A has no file system relationship to the original file A. In terms of me changing one, it's not going to change the other. Now, again, this is a kind scenario. I'm in the directory. I'm making copies of files in the same directory. But what if I'm in the temp directory? And I realize, you know what? I want to get a copy of file B, and I want to copy that into the temp directory. Well, how would that work? Because again, before we were simply using relative path names. So now I'm not in my home directory, I'm in the temp directory. So again, I can say copy, use the tilde, which represents a shorthand for /home / Travis P. Bonfili. And I could say /devnet file B, and we're going to pull that into the temp directory. Now comes the question, how can I represent the temp directory? Well, I could say /temp, but what if I hit enter right now? You can see what happened here. It said copy cannot open home Travis P. Bonfili /devnet /file B for reading, permission denied. Because again, look at those permission bits. So could I do this? Can I do a change mode from the temp directory and say change the permissions on file B, file B, and let's actually come back here. It was 2 into the file system there. We'll say chmod 755, and I can do that, but then can I rerun that command? Well, I can. So now let's go ahead and say ls-l, and remember, we're in the temp directory, and there is file B. And so that's one way to do it. Remember, what we did here was I provided shorthand for the absolute path name to file B and provided the absolute path name for the temp directory. But I'm in the temp directory. So is there another way I could say, if I'm in this directory, put the copy of the file right here in the current working directory? And as it turns out, the dot, which represents the current working directory, is a great way to do that. And that accomplishes the exact same thing. So could we use the ... Now, that's going to be ridiculous, but again, just sort of showing you some different scenarios. So if I go up one directory, that puts me in the root directory. Remember, I'm in my present working directory, or let me print the working directory right here, is I'm in /temp. So if I said cd ... and I just hit enter, that's going to put me in the root directory. So what if I said cd ... /home /Travis P. Bonfili, BNFIGLI, /devnet /file B, and then said put it right here. So here's a way using the dot and the ... And, oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to copy at that point. Here's a way using the dot and the ... that we could accomplish the exact same thing, right? Now, would you do that? Probably not, right? Because the more things you're typing, especially if you're me, the more chance you have for typos. So I like the shorthand for devnet /file B . And that's kind of the best way to knock that out. So that's sort of an unkind example. So now the question becomes, well, what if I want to copy everything in the DevNet directory into the temp directory? So I just did one file right there. Well, we're going to introduce you to a meta character, the asterisk, right? So if I said copy tilde / devnet /asterisk and put the period, I'm saying I want to copy everything, but let's see what happens here, right? And this is a great message that we get, and this is probably one of the more informational messages you'll receive. You'll notice it says copy -r not specified, omitting these directories. But did we get all of the files? So let's say ls-l. Well, we did. So what does that tell us? And the asterisk represents everything. So with that command, I'm basically saying copy everything in the DevNet directory and put it right here. However, the copy command, when the source that's being copied, right, includes a directory, or if you were just copying a directory, we need to tell the copy command to make that copy recursive. So here's where, if we take a look at the man page, we can say man cp. You could also say cp -- help, and this is going to give us some information, right? And again, it's very similar to the man page information, but if we take a look here, take a look at this -r. It says copy the directories recursively, meaning not just the files in that directory, copy all the directories in that directory. So we would add on either a capital R or a lowercase r. So let's do that. Before we do that, though, because we're going to take a look at another option here to the copy command. And if I was to say man cp, and we came down to the -lowercase p, right? You see how it says here, preserve mode, ownership, and timestamps, right? Or it's the same as -- preserve, which is sort of our GNU longhand. But -p is going to be important. We're going to see if, in fact, it does what I think it's going to do. If I was to say ls-l, right? What happened to the information regarding the modification time here? Well, that's today's date and that's today's time. Well, but you've been watching these videos and you know those files were created or last modified long, long ago. In fact, we can see that if I say ls-l tilde devnet, right? I'm representing my home directory, and hit enter. These files are May 29th in some cases, right? And May 31st. And so what also can we deduce from the copy command when we copy a file from either, and here you can see this is in the same directory. What is it updating? Yeah, it's giving it a current timestamp from the last time it was modified, i.e., in this case, when it was created, when the copy was created. Because take a look at the two copies. They're the current date and timestamp right here, right? So that's what the copy command is also doing. Now, how do we get it to preserve the date timestamp information, right? And the permission information, because in a lot of cases, the permissions will get set to just whatever your UMask is. And so let's say ls-l here, and let's look at the permission settings on the files. And you can see that for the files that we had here, if I was to go back up, let's see if I can get them both on the screen at the same time. So there's the original file permissions, and it looks like the file permissions were maintained, that it didn't change our file permissions, right? However, it did change the file modification time, right? We see a different date timestamp. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to create a bogus directory here using the mkdir command. I'm just going to call it junk. And we're going to cd into junk. And maybe I want to pull everything, a copy of everything from the DevNet directory. And let's see what happens if I just leave it like this. And I want to put it all right here in this directory. So now let me say ls-l. Well, there's the DevNet directory. And you can see there's going to be a semantic difference here. You see I stopped. I had the /*, but I pulled back from that. So I'm saying recursively copy the DevNet directory, including the name of the directory, DevNet. And let's see if I cd into DevNet here in this directory, junk, what's in there? All of the files, right? Now, look at the timestamps on all the files. They have changed. We want to preserve P with the -P. I want to preserve the original file information. So let me cd back up out of the DevNet, and I'm back here in junk. In fact, let's create another directory with the mkdir command. We'll just call this junk2. So I'm going to cd into junk2, and let's rerun that copy command again. But this time, instead of stopping after the directory name, I'm going to say /*. And let's see if there's any difference here. And I hit enter, and now let me say ls-l. And what's the difference? What happened that was different? When I omitted the /* from the copy command, it created a copy of the directory DevNet. But here I'm saying I don't need that because there's my file name separator, keeping in mind that directory files and regular text files, Linux looks at everything as a file, right? That file name separator, what I'm really saying is that's what I want. I want the asterisk. I want all files, all regular non-hidden files that are in that directory. I want a copy of those here. But again, we have the same problem. The timestamp information, right? So there's two different ways to do it. When we don't have the /* it creates that directory for us. When I do put the / inside the junk2 directory, it doesn't create a DevNet directory and then put it all under that. It gives me everything that was under the DevNet directory, regular files, not including, right? If I was to say ls-lai, we don't see hidden files. In fact, let's make sure ls-lai, and we don't need the I apologize, just the A. My habit is to always do I, and it shows you the inode number to the far left there. So ls-la, we'll do tilde, sorry, and we'll go DevNet. I think we had some files in there that were hit, and we did, right? There they are. There they are. So it's going to grab all the regular files for us, at least the example that we looked at. But we still have the problem where it's, let's go up a directory back into temp. Let's make mkdir, mkdir, junk3. And let's cd in, and actually for this one, we won't cd into junk3. So here, let's pull the copy command back up. And we want to do it recursively, but I want to preserve the file information. And here I want it under the junk3 directory. And now the dot is not going to work because I don't want another DevNet in temp. I want it in junk3. And so and I don't need the / specifically, right? But if I say junk3, let's see what happens here. So now let's ls-l junk3. What do you think we should see? Are we going to see just the files out of the original DevNet directory with the same permissions and the same timestamps that they originally had, which you can see right over here? We've got a lot of May 29th, May 31st, right? Or am I going to see a DevNet directory under junk3, and then under junk3, I'm going to, or under junk, let me rephrase that. Or am I going to see under the junk3 directory a new DevNet directory, and then under the DevNet directory, am I going to see all my files with permissions that have been preserved because of the -3? And as you would expect, because we don't have that / here, we're not just grabbing things out of DevNet, we are copying the entire DevNet directory. So there's the DevNet directory. So let's cd into junk3. We'll do an ls-l, and you can see there's the DevNet directory. Let's cd into DevNet, and let's type in ls-l, and most importantly, what did that -p accomplish? It maintained the permission settings. And again, the permission settings were already maintained. The -p helped us maintain the modification times, right? Because you can see there that those are the original modification times. So again, the -r, recursive with copy, and we looked at two little semantics there, right? What if I just put the directory name? What if I put the directory name / to try to pull all regular non-hidden files out of there, right? And by files, I mean files and directories. And so we saw that. All right. So you've seen me making directories here, and I'm going to stay in temp for this. I'll say cd/temp. Let me clear my screen. And so when I say ls-l, we've been making some directories. And so let's real briefly, before we talk about removing things, let's talk about creating directories. So I can say mkdir junk4, and that's just going to make the directory let's make sure we get the mkdir command right here. mkdir junk4, that makes the junk4 directory. Now, what happens if I want to create a structure, right? So let's say I want to create mkdir, and I'm going to do bin, and then under there I'm going to have some Python scripts, and under there it's going to be for 3.0, and it's going to be for DevNet, right? So is this going to work? And remember, I'm in the temp directory, and I'm trying to create the bin directory, which doesn't exist. At least I don't believe it does. And all those other directories under bin don't exist. And so what happens is cannot create directory bin Python 3.0 DevNet, no such file or directory. And the reason for this is that bin, if I say cd bin, that directory, the top level directory here in the list of directories I'm trying to create, that doesn't exist. Okay, well, let's go ahead and say mkdir, thinking that this is going to fix it, mkdir bin. And then let's rerun that command. And lo and behold, we get this error message again. And so the problem is what we're really trying to do, right, or what the file system thinks we're trying to do, is under bin Python 3.0, the Linux is assuming that that exists, that it's already there. But it's not, and that's our problem. Because ultimately, we want the DevNet directory to be the last directory that's created in this directory structure. However, for that to work, the parent directories would already have to be there with the format of the mkdir command that we're using. So, how do we get around this? Well, we want to create the parent directories or the intermediate directories that would need to exist all the way down to the directory at the bottom of the directory structure at the same time as we create DevNet. And to do that, we would say mkdir-p. And watch what happens here. So I'm going to say bin / Python / 3.0, and I'll even put in here, release 1 / DevNet / junk, right? And that P, that -P option with mkdir is going to create not only the bin directory, but all intermediate directories, Python 3.0, release 1, DevNet, and then the final directory, junk. And we no longer get that error message. So if I said cd bin / Python / 3.0 / release 1 / DevNet / junk, now I'm in that directory. Now, there's nothing in the directory, right? Because we just created it, but the directory is here. So let's cd back into temp. And now let's talk about removing things, right? Because I want to make sure we have this massive directory structure that we just created so we can talk about how we would remove things. So we talked about copying things. We're going to talk about removing things right now. Well, maybe I want to remove the bin directory. So can I say rm bin? Well, no, you can't remove it with the rm command because it's a directory. But what if I use it on a regular text file, right? So rm file A, which I believe we copied, right? And we can check that real quickly. ls-l, we'll say file A. Is it in here? Is it in the temp directory? It is. rm file A. That's how we can remove a regular non-directory file. To remove a directory file, we can say rmdir. Now, watch what happens here when I say rmdir bin. It comes up and it says fail to remove bin, directory not empty. Well, let's check what's in the bin directory. Well, remember, we just created that file system structure. There's a directory that exists in the bin directory named Python. And so rmdir is going to help you not hurt yourself, because maybe you forgot that you had the team's entire program in this bin Python, 3.0, release 1, DevNet junk directory. And if you were to be able to just simply type in here rmdir bin and you wipe all that stuff out by mistake, you're probably not going to feel good about that, right? Now, Well, how do we remove it then? Do I need to go into all those directories and subdirectories and clean everything up? And the answer is no. So what you can do is you can say, and again, if you said man rmdir, you'll see that there's a -r command. I'm sorry. The -p. So remove directory and its ancestors. And so this is similar to the rmdir ABC. We can go verbose. So let's do the -p. I was thinking about the rm command when I said -r. So let's go ahead and try that. So if I say rmdir -p bin and hit enter, you can still see it says directory not empty, right? So it's not actually removing that directory. Even if I cd into bin and I say rmdir python, which is in here, it's not going to let me do that. But what if I say rmdir, and what if I threw in a -r for recursive? Would that allow me to do it? python? No, you can see here that that's an invalid option. And so that was the option I was referencing or thinking about when we looked at the rmdir command. So let's go back up to temp, right? Now let's talk about the rm command. So you can say, and again, so rmdir, what's our use case there, is I can remove empty directories, right? So if I create a directory by mistake, let's say I say mkdir stuff, and I realize, oh, you know what, that's wrong, rmdir stuff. Because if stuff existed, and I keep mistyping that, mkdir stuff, if stuff existed, I can't say rm stuff, right? Because it's going to tell me stuff is a directory. So I can say rmdir stuff because it's empty, and we can get rid of it. So rm, though, can remove directories and everything under those directories. And here's where we get into a very dangerous version, or a very dangerous use case with rm. I can use a -r, which is recursive. So let's see what happens when I say rm -r bin. It's gone. Everything that was in that bin directory, files, directories, everything under bin is gone. Watch what happens when I say cd bin. It's not there. And if it's not there, all the child directories, subdirectories under bin are gone. And that's a very dangerous way to go in and to clean things up. Because maybe you accounted for everything that was under bin, maybe you didn't, right? So there's the -r option with remove. Now, the very dangerous thing to do is you can also use a -f, rm-rf. And I always sort of joke about this option. So rm-rf, remember the asterisk represents what? Yeah, it represents everything. And so let me make sure that we do this in the junk4 directory. So here I am in the junk4 directory, and let's actually go to junk3, and let me say, all right, so there's our DevNet directory. So here we are, we've got this DevNet directory in the junk3 directory, and what do we have under the DevNet directory? What's in there? All those files. So if I say rm-rf asterisk, and I'm in the junk3 directory, and I hit enter, what did I just get rid of? Yeah, I just got rid of not only the DevNet directory, but all files and subdirectories under the DevNet directory, and if there were any that I would have been prevented from removing, and again, typically the F is for force, right? I shouldn't say typically. The F is for force. So if we say man rm, you can see right here, it says ignore non-existent files and arguments and never prompt, meaning it's not going to ask you, hey, are you sure that you want to wipe out this entire directory structure? Is that what you're looking to do? And if permissions aren't there for you, but maybe you're the owner of the file, and again, it works differently if you're root as opposed to a regular user. it's going to force the removal. It's not going to prompt you. So you saw that, or maybe you saw that there was an option there. And let me go back over here to junk 2. Let's see what we've got in here. So there was an option to prompt you, right? So maybe you want to be prompted as sort of just a quick level set, a quick check. Hey, is this what I want to do? So you could say rm-i, and let's get rid of file A. And look, it comes up and says, remove regular file A. Well, I'll say yes. And then we say ls-l, and we see file A is gone. If I say rm-i file B, and I say in for no, let's say ls-l, file B is still there. So the final thing we're going to talk about here is the move command, because right now we've just been creating copies of things. What if I want to actually move something? I'm not interested in a copy of it. I want to move the original to a specific location. So for this, let's go back to the home directory, and let's go into that DevNet directory that we created, and we'll say ls-l. And you can see we've got a whole bunch of files in here. Well, what if I wanted to move file Z somewhere, like the temp directory? Well, I could say mv, the name of the file I wanted to move, and where I wanted to move it, right? And this is the absolute path name of the directory. Now, if the destination is a directory name, it's not going to name it tmp. It knows that this is a directory, right? Linux knows that we're trying to move it into a directory. It's going to do that with the exact same file name. So I'll hit enter. If we said ls-l/temp/file Z, did it get in there? Well, there it is. And take a look at what the move command knows. Not to update the modification time, right? Because look at that. File Z, 221 bytes, May 29th, 10 o'clock. Exact same date timestamp on there. Because we're not creating a copy, we're moving the original. Because here in this directory now, file Z is gone. We moved it, right? So it's been moved. So let's say ls-adir. Let's list out what is in the directory adir, and let's do this dir a. I'm looking for, I think we've got some stuff. There we go. So in dir a, right, I want to move these files. Well, remember, I'm not in dir a, but here's what I could say. I could say move from dir a, and I can put it like that because I'm in the parent directory for dir a. / let's move file D. And let's move file D to temp. Or I'm sorry, let's move it into the DevNet directory. I just have to do a dot because I am currently in the DevNet directory. So now when I say ls-l, there's file D. And take a look, does it have the same date timestamp? And we actually overwrote, there was a file D in here already. And hold on one second. I'm sorry. That was our temp. Oh, you know what? My bad. Forgot to do the long listing. But you can see we've got this file D from May 29th. So let's try this one last time. Let's say ls-l dir B. And you can see in here we've got file G, file H, and file I. So let's say move from dir B / move file I right here into the DevNet directory, the dot being the current working directory. Now we say ls-l on file I because I'm in the DevNet directory, and there it is with the exact same date and timestamp. So that's the move command. Now the question is, well, what if I wanted to move a bunch of things recursively? So let's go back into the temp directory. All right, so for the final example, let's clear our screen here. And you'll notice if I get back into my home directory and go into DevNet, we've got this dir C, right? So let's list out what is in dir C. Well, it's file L, M, and N. So let me get back into the temp directory. And what I could do is I could say, well, I want to move file N here, but I want to move all the files out of dir C. So what if I say move tilde representing /home/Travis P. Bonfili /devnet/dir C, and I put a dot. Is this going to work? So I want to move the contents of dir C here. Well, that's really not what I'm saying with this command. And let's see, this is not going to work. Or, I'm sorry, it's going to work, but let's go ahead and take a look and say ls-l, and we can see that we have dir C right up here, and let's list out ls-l dir C. And there we go. We've got everything. So again, I apologize, I misspoke. So that's going to work. It's going to give us the directory. It's going to give us all the files under the directory, and it continues to maintain the date timestamp information as whatever was the original date timestamp. But what if you don't want the directory? Right? What if I just want what's inside the directory? Well, maybe I've got this new directory, and we're going to say it's called dir Z, right? And I want to put file L, M, and N out of the original dir C into dir Z. How could I do that? I should say I want to move them. So we're going to say move /, which means my home directory, devnet /dir C, but I don't want dir C anymore. I just want everything in dir C, and we're going to put it in dir Z. Is that going to work? And you can see that it comes back and it says can't stat no such file or directory. And it gives us that /home/Travis P. Bonfili /devnet/dir C. Why are we getting that? Yeah, because we just moved it. It's no longer there. Where is it at? It's here in the temp directory. So let's adjust the command. Move dir C and just the contents of dir C to dir Z. Is this going to work? Yes. So let's say ls-l dir C. It's empty because we've just moved everything out of that directory into dir Z, right? So we've seen a number of ways that we can copy files. We could copy recursively. We've seen that we don't have that -r option available. However, with the move command, there's ways around that. We looked at rmdir, that it's used for removing empty directories, but the rm with the recursive flag will do the removal of directories under or subdirectories under a specific directory, but make sure that is what you want to do before you do it, or you could lose a lot of stuff. All right, well, that is going to conclude the Linux command line basics on moving, copying, and removing files. If you have any questions, be sure to let me know. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.